Today we are going to take a look at some of the most famous wrestlers of all time. In my opinion, that is, because fame is like aesthetics. It's a personal preference, really. And Jake the Snake, for instance, he may be, to certain people, the most famous wrestler of all time. I mean, who does not know who Jake the Snake is? And even if you don't know his name, you probably remember him as the guy that hauled that big snake out and put it on his opponent. Let's get this out of the way. At the start, Owen Hart. Unfortunately, as much as I love the guy, him and Chris Benoit, guys like that, we will not be putting on the list because they are more or less famous for one tragedy, and aside from those tragedies, they would not be even mentioned. Vince McMahon, he won the title, for goodness sakes, but I do not count him as a wrestler, and this guy here, no disrespect meant to David Arquette. I respect the guy, but just the one of the worst things that they've ever done in professional wrestling make him the champion. So I'm not going to count him either, because all of those people are very, very famous, especially Arquette. So now that we have that out of the way, let's get into the meat and potatoes of this operation. Who wouldn't remember Macho Man Randy Savage?
Ooh, yeah, as I step into the squared circle and rub the elbow on my opponent, yeah.
He was my favorite wrestler of all time growing up, for sure. Definitely worthy of being mentioned in this list. Now there's, like I said, this is a subgroup. He kind of passed the torch to this man, Bret the Hitman Hart, another very famous wrestler, but I mean his fame was limited, I believe. Shawn Michaels, you can't mention Bret without Shawn. I mean, they were both so famous, the Montreal Screwjob, things of that nature. I mean, and both great champions, of course, but I think maybe Shawn edged out Bret in the fame department. He was American, of course. And if the mention of Bret reminds you of Shawn, then the mention of Shawn has to lead you towards Triple H. Look at that big mug. And you start thinking about so many wrestlers, guys. You had the Ultimate Warrior, Goldberg, Brock Lesnar, for goodness sakes. All flash in the pans, though. I think in the future, nowadays, Triple H may have superseded each one of the gentlemen that I have mentioned so far. But in my opinion, this man, The Undertaker, has been around for so long and he has been so dominant for that time that I think he is a little bit more famous than Triple H. You gotta think, guys. I remember him when I was just a wee whippersnapper. He hit the scene. You can never forget him. And how long has The Undertaker been around? I don't think anybody has been on like that dominant for that many years. This is The Undertaker. And the gimmick alone, I mean, he's the Jason Voorhees of the WWFE. Whatever you call it, you got to get the F out. All right, guys. Now that kind of is the first sub-list. Every one of these guys are basically from the Macho Man to The Undertaker. These guys are on a level playing field. And now we get into my numbered list, and I'm beginning with this guy right here. He, in my firm belief, is more famous than all of the other guys so far. Woo! The Nature Boy, Ric Flair. And some of you are shaking your head thinking, who would be more famous than Ric Flair? Come on. And I have to tend to agree. He might just as well be at the very top of this entire list. But, in my opinion, he lands in this nice little spot right here ahead of The Undertaker. The Hot Scot, Rowdy Roddy Piper, lands just ahead of Ric Flair, the Nature Boy. I'm sure there's some people thinking, why would you even put Rowdy Piper on this list? Do not kid yourself. Go to Hollywood. Roddy Piper, he is one of the most recognized. He could be at the top of this list as well. Any of these guys, from Ric Flair to Roddy Piper to all the next guys that I'm going to mention, they all could be considered the most famous wrestler of all time. From movies to his charismatic nature. This guy, him and Ric Flair actually run up and down the roads together for years in AWA. So I don't think Ric Flair would be too upset to see him placed just ahead of himself in this list. Andre the Giant, without a doubt, probably the most famous wrestler of all time. And he is not number one on my list, and you may be surprised of that. This guy was so famous, not just in the United States and Canada and Mexico, all over North and South America, but this man traveled to Japan, very famous in Europe. Just unreal how famous this man was and is. And I think as time goes by, he may be edged up on my personal list, but as of now, and this decision really hurts me inside, I am placing John Cena. I'm shaking my head. I'm placing John Cena just ahead of Andre the Giant. I have to be very, very unbiased when making this list because, honestly, personally, I don't got nothing. I don't have anything against John Cena, but one of the main reasons why I stopped watching wrestling. But I'm sure he's a decent, hard-working man. But either way, with social media and things of that nature, and how many people there are watching wrestling, I mean, John Cena, and he's in the movies. It's just hard to beat his fame. He is a roller coaster as far as that is concerned. So I guess this man here would be a runaway freight train? I don't know. This guy here, there was nobody ever in the history of wrestling that would get the audience to stand up on their feet and cheer like Stone Cold Steve Austin got them to. I remember watching it from 90, even late 96. They started to really get behind him up until the late 90s. Stone Cold, the glass would break. He would walk out, throw them fingers in the air. Everybody. And I remember you'd walk around in the shopping malls, and you would see grown men wearing Austin 316 t-shirts, things of that nature. I mean, Stone Cold Steve Austin, this may be debatable, but I do believe he is more famous than Ric Flair, Roddy Piper, John Cena, and even maybe Andre the Giant. And you know, notice I keep mentioning Andre, is because I do believe as time goes on, he will be more famous than Stone Cold. Hulk Hogan, Terry Bollea, when it comes crashing down and it hurts inside. Dun, 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 dun. Nobody's more famous than Hulk Hogan. He's a road sign, for goodness sakes. Everybody knows the Hulk. But again, guys, I have to look back to Andre the Giant. And he is, I'm going to say this, he is the single reason why Hulkamania began. That is a very bold statement, but I believe it to be the truth for sure. But Andre passed the ball to Hogan. It was up to Hogan to run with it as hard and as far and as long as he did. And not too many people did. Of course, he made his return to the WWE 2002, wasn't it? Early 2000s, and that just increased his fame. So Hulk Hogan, is he the most famous wrestler of all time? He is second, in my opinion. So who's the first? If you smell what The Rock is cooking. The Rock, in my opinion, edges out Hulk Hogan. You'll notice there is one theme between all these gentlemen. They were famous worldwide. They were not just famous in North America. And The Rock, by far no exception, with the movies that this man does, he is as big as Godzilla in Japan. And when you are famous in Japan, you are famous forever. Much like, yes, I know, much like Andre the Giant. He is still very famous over there. But anyway, guys, I'm sure there is some debate whether Hulk Hogan or The Rock, maybe even Stone Cold, or anybody really on this last section of this list could be considered the most famous of all time. But I'm going with The Rock. Hope you guys enjoyed this little video, and I know I haven't been posting as much as I would like to. Very busy with my other channel, but I promise you I will never give up on this one. And just keep subscribing, hit thumbs up. It really helps. Wait for the next one. Enjoy your day, guys.